President Trump has certainly had a rocky relationship with public opinion, but his difficulties haven't done anything to make people think better of Hillary Clinton, which is kind of weird. A new Gallup poll shows Clinton approval rating at 36%, an all-time low, while disapproval has hit 61%. That's an all-time high. What is going on here exactly? Something bigger, perhaps? Julie Alvin is digital editor at Time Inc., and she joins us tonight. Julie, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So what I find so striking about these numbers, and I really feel I don't want to pile on Hillary Clinton. She lost. That's enough punishment as far as I can tell. But I think this may say something bigger and more interesting about the country. Her numbers among women are much worse than you would think for someone who is the self-described champion of all women. A lot of women don't like Hillary Clinton. Why is that?
I can't necessarily answer that question. I think it depends on who you're talking to. So, if you're looking at these polls specifically, it showed that there was a drop from 79 to 78% among Democrats who were taking this poll, and the poll among Republicans was from 11% to 5%. So I don't know if, the number of women who support Hillary Clinton is really the issue here, and really more that this is split across party lines. And I have a lot of thoughts on why that
Well,
might
no,
be.
that is definitely true. Of course, it's a party line thing. It always has been. But her numbers among women are soft. She's been asked about it repeatedly. She lost women under 30 to Bernie Sanders, you remember, in the primaries. She lost married women in the general. And she was asked over at MSNBC the other day, why is that? And she said, and I'm quoting, I think women, are publicly disrespecting themselves. I don't know what their own I don't think they know what their own arguments are.
Well,
in other words, they're too silly to know that I'm a great person. Isn't that kind of patronizing?
I mean, I've heard this argument from Fox News hosts many times that when Hillary Clinton says that, women didn't vote in their best interest by voting for Donald Trump, and I certainly agree with her on that point. I think that saying that her approval ratings among women are low doesn't necessarily mean that the approval ratings of Donald Trump are then high for those same women. So, there are certainly things that Hillary Clinton has skeletons in her closet. She has been criticized most specifically by Donald Trump and the GOP and this network in particular over and over again.
Hold on, Julie. We're not talking about, Fox is one among many, many networks. And I know that it's this thing where, it's Fox's fault. Okay, but
I don't think
majority of married women voted against her. And unfortunately, they're not all our viewers.
Well,
so here's my question. If you said, women are doing this, and I said, the thing about women is they just don't know what's in their own interest. They just don't understand what they say. You would look at me and say, wow, that's patronizing, maybe even sexist. Why is it okay when Hillary says that about women?
Well, I think that she was right in saying that women who voted for Donald Trump are voting against their own interests, given the fact that Donald Trump has a history of bragging about, alleged sexual harassment against women, given that a lot of the programs that he's put in place, from the minimum wage from, advocating for not as high of a minimum wage to the health care bill, are things that would disproportionately affect women. So that's my view. That's also proven out by fact.
Well, no, it's not. These are obviously subjective statements that you're making. They're not factual statements. But let me just ask you, don't adult women have the right to decide what they think is best for them without being patronized by liberals?
They absolutely have the right to make the decisions that they believe are best for them. But I think that you could also say in this election that a lot of rural low-income people actually voted against their interests in voting for Donald Trump because, the health care bills that he would propose and the tax bill that's going through are things that are going to disadvantage them. So, you can say this is sexist, you can say this is elitist, but it really, if you actually look at the policies that are in place, a lot of these do disadvantage women, they disadvantage low-income people, and they disadvantage people who voted for Donald Trump. I don't think that that's patronizing. I think that it's true.
Well, it might be worth meditating on why they did that. Maybe if you think the other people hate you because they don't like your skin color or your gender or where you live, maybe that kind of wrecks the deal for you. You're not going to vote for someone you think hates you. I think that's true for both sides. But let me ask you this. Hillary's book tour kind of went on forever. I think my guess is these numbers are going down because she's been doing all these media appearances trying to sell this book. She's incredibly rich already. Why do you think she had to go on the world's longest book tour and try to sell this book beyond the point that people really wanted to buy it? What was that about?
I don't think that it was beyond the point that people wanted to buy it. I know a lot of people were really hungry to sort of learn what lessons she took away from this election. And, what I really want to know is, why are we talking about Hillary Clinton's approval ratings? I want to talk about Donald Trump's abysmal approval ratings.
I bet you do. But Hillary Clinton kind of thrust herself. Look, if Hillary Clinton wants to, move to Barbados and, do whatever Hillary Clinton does in her spare time, that's fine with me. But Hillary Clinton placed herself at the center of public attention for almost a year trying to sell this book. And so I think it's fair to respond. I don't think I'm a Hillary obsessive or hater or anything like that. She's jumping around trying to be relevant.
She wrote a book. She's not a public figure. She's not in public office. Why does she even have approval ratings? She's a civilian. I just don't understand. I also don't think that, this is the most watched cable news network in the country, and I don't think that, you guys can spend a lot of time inordinately bashing Hillary Clinton and then wonder why people don't like her.
I'm actually not bashing her, but let me just ask you one final question, okay? And I don't want to be mean, but can you think of a single interesting or insightful thing Hillary Clinton has ever said? I've covered her since 1992, and I have never heard one. Have you?
Yes, I can think of many interesting and insightful things. And
hit me with one
things.
profundity. I promise I'll let you. Let you deliver it.
Well, I think that the fact that she acknowledged in her book various reasons that came to light about why she wasn't elected, including accounting for her own tactical mistakes, as well as accounting for some of the sexism that was leveled against her in the campaign, as well as accounting for, the nationalism and populism that the Donald Trump campaign, played into. I think there was a lot of insight in that book. And you asked about the book tour, and I was somebody who wanted to read that book. I wanted to know what happened. I want to know why Donald Trump is our president. I want to know.
I could have told you. Sexism. I've watched her a long time. I knew that was going to be the answer. You should have called me, and I could have saved you.
That's not the answer, but we don't call male politicians shrill and unlikable, so it definitely played a part.
I don't know if they are shrill and unlikable. I'd be happy to. And there are who are shrill and unlikable, and I'd be happy to say that. So you challenge me, and I will rise to that challenge. Julie, thank you.
The question of the day, was there or was there not a crime committed by the Clinton Foundation? Hillary losing the election should have no impact on that investigation. In just moments, Charles Ortel weighs in. Then, is Harry Reid right? Will people die if Republicans repeal Obamacare? And what is this, the 8th excuse Democrats have used since the election about why Hillary lost? Bill Clinton now says Trump doesn't know anything except how to get angry white men to vote for him. Thanks for being here tonight. As you know, our nation is at a tipping point. We either turn America towards liberty or we risk losing her forever. So let's get started. Our first tipping point tonight, was there or was there not a crime committed by the Clinton Foundation? Hillary losing the election should have no impact on that investigation. Accordingly, the FBI office in New York has been told by headquarters not to suspend their investigation into the Clinton Foundation, this according to reliable sources. The investigation itself was triggered last February by recordings of suspects in Los Angeles who were reportedly discussing money laundering. This comes on the heels of allegations of charity fraud from the Clinton Foundation as well, a violation of state law in New York, as well as allegations of pay-to-play schemes while Hillary was Secretary of State. Joining me now, Wall Street investment analyst Charles Ortel. Charles, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on, Liz.
All right, Charles, let's start with this question of the day. It's a pretty serious one. In your opinion, was there or was there not a crime committed by the Clinton Foundation?
Well, Liz, I don't think there was one crime. I think this is the largest unprosecuted charity fraud conspiracy ever in recorded history. By my calculation, looking through the available declarations that the trustees have made around the world, we are talking here about a fraud counting illegal private gains that is likely denominated not in the hundreds of billions of dollars, but possibly in the trillions of dollars.
Wow, right. And then that's pretty significant. Like you said, I think it's potentially more than 1, 2, 3 crimes here. The FBI office in New York, like I said in the introduction, they were given orders by headquarters not to suspend their investigation just because Hillary lost, even in the face of Donald Trump saying he may not appoint a special prosecutor. Charles, what do you make of that?
Well, I think in this country we still, even today, have, in theory, equal treatment under the law. And there are 2 recent cases involving congresspeople who were involved with alleged slush funds. One, a representative called Chaka Khan, I think, or Fatah Khan, has been sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. Another, Corinne Brown, is under indictment in the middle of being prosecuted for an $800,000 slush fund. Here we have, on declared donations alone, something that's probably $2 billion in terms of declared donations accounted for illegally, likely diversion of those donations. But beyond that, all these hidden payments that can only come to light once the FBI, once foreign governments get serious about bringing the Clintons and their cronies and co-conspirators to justice.
Right, and I think that's why President-elect Trump has encouraged ambassadors, or he's planning to encourage ambassadors, I should say, to pressure foreign nations to have their investigative teams look into this too, not just the United States. But Charles, go through the list of some of the charity fraud violations that you found within the Clinton Foundation, if you would, the ones that violate state law in New York.
Okay, so under state law, under New York state law, which is very strict, you have to provide a complete, comprehensive, consistent, consolidated accounting of a charity's results. This charity, based in actually Little Rock, has spread through all the states and through numerous countries around the world, and they resist getting any independent accounting firm to comply with the law. There has never been a legally compliant, strict audit performed of this, going all the way back to its founding, October 23rd, 1997. So that's one obvious area. Another area would be when you compare the donations made by the biggest donor, Unitate, an entity in Switzerland, to what the Clintons claim they may have gotten from that entity, there's hundreds of millions of dollars discrepancy there. Same story, a smaller discrepancy because Gates gave less, But you go known donor by known donor, and look what they claim they gave to the Clinton Foundation, and try to figure out what the Clinton Foundation is declaring they received, and you see these massive diversions. Those would be two simple and straightforward areas that the IRS itself, with no help from the FBI, should have been on long ago.
Right, particularly the donation aspect. Charles, let me ask you this. Any other charity of this size, particularly in the state of New York, I guess, since we're talking about New York state law, anybody else of this size get away with things like this?
Well, sadly, Liz, people, because there's so many charities do indeed get away with these technical violations. We're talking actually about New York state law, but I would encourage your viewers to understand that no state and even our federal government has control over this prosecution because this Clinton Foundation has been operating around the world, illegally soliciting money, illegally operating. Multiple governments, multiple serious governments, the UK, the French, Australians, the Norwegians, the Swedish, many foreign governments can prosecute no matter what President Obama decides to do on the way out, maybe pardoning, or what Donald Trump decides to do on the way in.
Right. Essentially what you're saying then, if I'm not mistaken, is that the Clinton Foundation isn't immune to being prosecuted even if Donald Trump decides not to pursue the special prosecutor, even if Barack Obama issues a pardon to Hillary Clinton. But Charles, talk to me about this investigation itself. It was started in last February, and the investigation was triggered by FBI recordings in Los Angeles of people talking about money laundering. I mean, that takes it to a whole new level as well.
Yeah, I mean, sad to say, a charity is almost, in quotes, a perfect vehicle for money laundering. If you've got a crooked charity with crooked trustees and no accountants and no controls, and you want to move money around the world, who's going to question money going in and out of a charity? People are happy to see large sums go into it, and if you don't have accountants checking what they really did with the money, you can move illicit black money into a charity. You can pay off your friends. You can pay off politicians. You can have foreign governments corrupting the American political system. You can have this government corrupting foreign governments. And so, that's why I lit on this in March of 2015 as an example that really needs to be studied and exposed so that people understand charity fraud in the name of a former president, an aspiring president, is a diabolical conspiracy that deserves to be fully exposed and assiduously punished.
Right, because I think, like you said, it might be the easiest way to money launder here, but it's also the most despicable because there are many donors who have goodwill, who intend for their money to go to charitable donations, and it's being used for nefarious purposes within the Clinton Foundation. That, to me, morally makes it so much worse even. But, Charles, former President Bill Clinton has been blaming James Comey recently for renewing the investigation. Of course, it was never officially closed. He didn't reopen it. He just renewed it several days before the election. He said if James Comey hadn't done that, the election would have turned out very differently. But in fact, a judge just ordered a search warrant to be unsealed that led to this renewal of this investigation. So it wasn't completely political.
I'd say that's kind of rich. That's like when a thief gets apprehended and the thief says, if the policeman hadn't caught me, then I wouldn't be going to jail. I mean, the trustees of the Clinton Foundation are required, Bill Clinton included, to make truthful disclosures. And instead of doing that, they've been making false and materially misleading disclosures, soliciting funds on false pretenses. And we could get into some more details about the diabolical things this charity has actually done with its loose controls, hurting and potentially killing people in the process of, in theory, fighting HIV/AIDS.
Right, and that, of course, you're referring to in East Africa when the Clinton Foundation distributed HIV medicine that was later found to be watered down, which in fact can be even more dangerous because it can not only cause those people their lives because they're not getting the medication that they need, but it can cause the spread because they're not treated.
Exactly, and it's really a diabolical thing to think that a former president and an aspiring president who should know better, and their daughter, who has a PhD, I believe, in health-related issues, would sit on top of a charity and allow this type of danger to spread, not simply in East Africa, but all across Africa, Asia, parts of Eastern Europe, and into the Caribbean. I mean, this is really bad stuff. Marsha Blackburn and her staff issued a fantastic report. I'd encourage your viewers to read it. We need to step in, lean in, and get concerned about this.
Right, and it's not just a political issue that should end with the campaign. Charles, thank you so much, as usual, for detailing all these abuses by the Clinton Foundation. Like you said, people need to know. We need to know what